Hi everyone, welcome to An Hour with LawSikho. Today we have a very special guest with us, a very famous cyber lawyer. You must have heard his name. Mr. Pavan Duggal is with us today, and we are going to ask him many questions about how to build a career around cyber law and a practice around cyber law, and even what are the developments that are happening right now around this field. So we are very lucky to have him today, sir. Welcome to An Hour with LawSikho.
Thank you. It's a pleasure joining you on LawSikho.
Sir, before we go into anything else, we want to know from you, what you have been doing. If you can, I'm guessing most of our viewers today will be familiar with what you do, but if you can, you still tell, what trajectory your career has taken in all these years.
Well, I think this has been an exciting journey. When I began working in cyber law, there was not much work going across in the mid 90s. From those times when the state of Utah became the first state in the world to come up with a cyber law, to the time when in 1997 the General Assembly of the United Nations passed the UNCITRAL Model Law on Electronic Commerce, asking different countries to come up with the national legislations for promoting e-commerce, to the time when India started working on its IT bill. It's been a long journey, and ever since India came up with its cyber law, a new vista opened up because it was initially just thought to be a limited ecosystem only consisting of e-commerce enabled applications. But as time flew up, it was very clear that cyber law as a discipline is constantly evolving. So my journey was very exciting in terms of seeing how cyber law evolution of jurisprudence was evolving with the passage of time and contributing to the same, both at the national level as also at the international level. From the time I had founded cyberlaws.net in the mid 90s till such time subsequently, we had been extensively looking at how the cyber legal frameworks of different parts of the world have been growing. And I've not only been contributing nationally in terms of working with the government of India on various cyber law issues and electronic governance, as also cybercrime issues. I've been extensively working with the National Judicial Academy, with the National Police Academy, with various state judicial academies in creating far more training and awareness amongst both the police and the law enforcement agencies. My work took me across to different shores in different countries. I landed up doing a lot of work for a lot of these nation states, also working with international organizations. And over a period of time, it was very, very clear that cyber law as a discipline is beginning to evolve at a very rapid pace. Initially, people thought that there will be just one cyber law discipline. But from the very beginning, I was clear that cyber law as a discipline is going to constantly keep on expanding and that more and more sub-disciplines have to be incorporated as an integral component of cyber law. I've been doing extensive writing. In the last 25 years, I've written 92 books on various issues of cyber law, cyber security law, cyber crimes, and newly emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence, quantum computing, blockchains, and the Internet of Things. And the specific intersection that these new emerging technologies are having in the cyber law ecosystem as a whole. And I'm beginning to see now a distinctive new field of subfield of cyber law emerging, being cyber security law, which is only dealing with specifically the legal, policy, and regulatory issues pertaining to cyber security, and that's getting bigger and bigger with each passing day. So it's been a good, interesting journey. It's a journey that's taught me one thing, that every day is a new day. Every day you need to learn something. What you learn today is only good for today, not for tomorrow. And that you have to constantly keep on updating your skill sets. One has been doing that. One has been extensively speaking at various international and national conferences. I've been part of various international initiatives on cyber law jurisprudence, been a part of various primers being developed in different parts of the world, whether it was the ASEAN task force. I've actually worked with the preparation of a wiki for cybercrimes for the Council of Europe, and of course done some extensive work with UNESCO, even on the issues pertaining to cyber radicalization and cyber extremism, and the way of how things can effectively work in this regard. So it's been an exciting journey, but I think the future holds far more new promise. New fields, subfields, and subdisciplines are emerging in cyber law jurisprudence, and that's why cyber law assumes so much distinctive character that I think it should be the toast of the times.
So, you said there are so many different sub-disciplines which are emerging in cyber law. Could you tell us, like you mentioned some of them, but could you like tell us like which one are the major ones apart from cyber security law that is emerging as a major discipline or may emerge in the future as a major area of work for lawyers?
So initially, when cyber law began, the vision was very clear. They only wanted to look at the legal issues concerning e-commerce and the internet. So most of the countries began seeing cyber law jurisprudence evolving in the context of e-commerce enabling legislations because the electronic format had to be granted legality. The UNCITRAL model law on electronic commerce and the UNCITRAL model law on electronic signatures had paved the way for different nations to come up with national e-commerce enabling laws. Now, over a period of time, we had been talking about information security, but cyber security as a concept really started emerging in the last 1 decade. But still, it was only a technical concept. Till such time, we started seeing a couple of years back when different countries started coming up with distinct national cyber laws only dedicated to cybersecurity. And that's why cybersecurity becomes a major sub-discipline in terms of a legal discipline under the umbrella of cyber law. In addition, newly emerging disciplines are also coming as part of the cyber law umbrella. For example, the toast of today's times is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is amazing in terms of the growth that's currently happening, but is also throwing up some very interesting and critical issues in terms of legalities and policy and regulatory frameworks for the same. For example, in my book on artificial intelligence law, I've argued that the time for regulating artificial intelligence is now, because 24 months down the line, it might be too late. So this artificial intelligence law is going to be emerging as a sub-discipline under the cyber law umbrella. In addition, we are beginning to see how IoT or the Internet of Things is coming up with its own distinct legalities, which is not something that the superficial internet, interconnected, ubiquitous internet is still now concerned with. With more and more smart televisions, smart ovens, smart ACs, and smart refrigerators being sold in the market, and the connected privacy and data protection ramifications, I think this promises to throw up a completely new subdiscipline as far as cyber law is concerned. In addition, the advent of newly emerging technologies like blockchain shows that this will have to be another important subdomain within the cyber law umbrella because it's not just about bitcoins. It's about a variety of enabling technological platforms which can be used for the purposes of enabling various areas of human activity. In addition, I believe over a period of time, quantum computing should become bigger. Already, the 50-bit qubit computer, quantum computer, has already been developed by IBM, and in a couple of years, it should be going in mainstream adoption. And that would bring across new distinctive challenges that will have to be looked across. Of course, other traditional avenues of jurisprudence will continue to be bothering cyber law as a paradigm. For example, internet jurisdiction is a big issue. Where does internet jurisdiction lie? Where does it begin? Where does it end? Internet has indeed made geography history, but it has also thrown up very ticklish internet jurisdiction issues that we have not yet been able to fully solve. In addition, the advent of the dark net has actually now demonstrated that this particular new technology is going to be meriting a distinctive new discourse on cyber law jurisprudence, and that should also be an emerging, evolving thrust area as a part of sub-discipline under the cyber law umbrella. In addition, the traditional aspects of cyber law will continue to be getting more strengthened, whether it's attribution, whether it's electronic authentication, whether it's electronic records. And now new concepts have started emerging. For example, a new concept that's started emerging is dealing with cyber sovereignty. Traditionally, we have already been thinking of and talking of physical world sovereignty of different countries. But now, for the first time, we are now beginning to talk of a concept of cyber sovereignty, where countries are saying that my cyber sovereignty is not just limited to my territorial boundaries, but applies across the world to different places on the internet. So much so that a country like Vietnam, in its latest legislation on cybersecurity that had passed a month back, has now come up with the concept of a national cyberspace. And I think that's a very interesting concept, but should also engage the attention of various thought leaders in cyber law jurisprudence. So, all said and done, it's a constantly evolving mushrooming of activities, disciplines, and subdisciplines within the broader umbrella of cyber law as the distinctive mother discipline pertaining to jurisprudence concerning not just use of the internet, cyberspace, the World Wide Web, but also leading to broader use of computers, computer systems, computer networks, computer resources, communication devices, as also data and information in the electronic form.
Okay. Sir, very often we hear this term cyber lawyer, and like there's the people also talk about technology lawyers. So are they quite the same breed of lawyers, or are they dealing with different things? Should we like are technology lawyers and cyber lawyers the same people?
Well, these are terms that are often used interchangeably. A cyber lawyer is a lawyer that's looking at cyber law as a distinctive discipline. Some lawyers say, I don't specifically only want to work on the internet, I want to work on emerging new technologies. So, to that extent, they often tend to distinguish their work to say that they're technology lawyers. But often, more often than not, what a cyber lawyer does is exactly what a technology lawyer does, because cyber lawyer also is dealing with technology. In this case, being internet, which I think is the biggest game changer in human history after the advent of fire. But increasingly, I think both of them invariably refer to similar kinds of works being done by legal professionals.
Right. I think because anyway, all technology has started being so interconnected that the distinction may not make sense. So, what do these technology lawyers, the cyber lawyers, actually do? Like in India, if we look at, like what sort of work is usually keeping the cyber lawyers and technology lawyers occupied?
Well, there is so much of work to keep technology and lawyers and cyber lawyers occupied in a country like India. Why? Because India is seeing a explosion as far as the growth and adoption of the digital format is concerned. The current government has already initiated the Digital India program, which is aiming to transform India into a knowledge society and economy. Having said that, more and more people in India are now today using social media and over the top applications. This effectively means that almost everybody who's on the internet today has ceased to be a normal user. They've all become a global author, a global transmitter, and a global broadcaster of data. And Indians are increasingly realizing one thing, that they are very fertile in terms of generating data. Already, the entire quantum of data that human civilization had actually generated from the beginning of civilization till 2003, that entire quantum of data is what the world produces every 2 days. And Indians are very prolific in terms of producing all kinds of data. India specifically is a WhatsApp nation. WhatsApp connects and unites Indians, and Indians invariably keep on publishing, transmitting, forwarding all kinds of information and sharing them on over the top applications like WhatsApp. In this context, it thus becomes important to understand that somebody or the other invariably lands himself into or herself into trouble. So, most of the time, Indians find that they are being targeted by online frauds, by fake websites, fake recruitment scams, online scams. They'll end up losing their money in fictitious, fraudulent transactions, or they would go to websites which will actually offer unbelievable discounts, and they would use their credit card details and find themselves in trouble. So technology lawyers and cyber lawyers are busy trying to give advice to these people on how they can get their monies back. A lot of time these elements involve criminal designs and intentions. In fact, cybercrime as a phenomenon has grown massively in India. In fact, in India, we've begun to see cybercrime emerging as a cottage industry. So, consequently, a large number of Indians are finding themselves to become victims of cybercrimes. They require advice on what are the remedies, how they can go forward. In addition, today, whether you are in cyberspace or not, if you're using the electronic format, you are already dealing with data and information in the electronic form as also electronic evidence. With electronic evidence becoming admissible in the country by virtue of the amendments to the Indian Evidence Act, more and more people now require assistance on how to produce, prove, and make your electronic evidence admissible in a court of law. Further, we find there is a lot of online disputes that keep on happening, which require adjudication. Cyber lawyers come and assist there. In addition, there are disputes pertaining to electronic authentication in terms of digital signatures. Those disputes are invariably addressed there. Email contracts are becoming regularly common and mainstream in our lives, and often there are disputes pertaining to the same. Cyber lawyers assist in that particular direction. Further, they also assist in ensuring your compliances with the applicable law. For example, in India, we have the Indian Information Technology Act 2000, which we refer to as the Indian Cyber Law. The Indian Cyber Law has a variety of compliance requirements of various stakeholders. A large chunk of these stakeholders are what the law describes them as intermediaries. So, any person who's a network service provider, an internet service provider, a web hosting company, an online auction portal, a payment site, cyber cafes, search engines, or online marketplaces, these are all intermediaries. There are distinct compliance requirements under the Information Technology Act 2000 and also rules and regulations made thereunder by the government from time to time. Cyber lawyers help and assist various stakeholders in ensuring their compliance with other laws. Further, if somebody gets straddled with the litigation, cyber lawyers help them in defending the litigation. Also, if you have to institute a litigation based on a cause of action that's arisen in cyberspace or in the electronic format, the cyber lawyers and technology lawyers assist you in that regard. Often there are technology of transfer agreements that have to be carefully negotiated, discussed, and analyzed. Lawyers in this regard help. Further, today, because cyber is so much an integral part of companies' lives and their day-to-day operations, companies are increasingly requiring legal support on how they can be seen to be compliant with the cyber security related compliances in the country. And effective, for example, from 4th of January 2017, the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team of India has mandated every corporate, every service provider in India, as also every data center in India, to mandatorily report certain specified kinds of incidents as cyber security breaches. And non-reporting of that has been made a crime. So cyber criminal lawyers help in ensuring compliances, in giving proactive advice so as to limit your exposure under the legal consequences and the legal frameworks, and give advice on a variety of day-to-day issues, including on mobile applications, third-party data, electronic commerce, electronic governance, and a variety of related things in the cyber ecosystem as a whole. So I think the hands are full for a typical cyber lawyer, and he has so much to do and so much to accomplish in terms of giving proper service to his or her clients.
Right. So, there is so much work to be done in cyber law and technology law, but we very often hear that, like young lawyers struggle to find work. So, what would be your advice? Like, how should young lawyers go about building their career around this area?
I believe young lawyers have a distinctive edge in cyber lawyering as a discipline. Why? Because they are young, they're tech savvy, they understand technology far more better than other professionals or other seniors. So they can definitely have an edge, provided they should have some patience. The problem is everybody wants to come in, they want to push a button, and they want to be transformed into the greatest lawyers in the next 24 hours. Now, practically, that doesn't work. It takes a lot of time, effort, energy, and experience to grow. But I think if youngsters can start following the legal developments that take place in the technology paradigm, look at and track some of the very important litigations that can help them give insights as to how the legal frameworks is developing. Further, I think as we go forward, it will also be a good idea if young lawyers can be associated with different companies, whether as interns, whether as in-house counsels, whether as project consultants. The idea is not to ask for money initially. The idea is to be associated with some cutting edge work. Now, once you are familiar and you become absolutely an expert in this cutting edge work, then money is automatically going to come in. So I believe there are so much now new opportunities coming in. India is now seeing a very fertile ecosystem of startups. And these lot of startups are doing some very interesting work pertaining to newly emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence and cybersecurity and blockchains. So if youngsters can start to be associated with some of these startups, that will help them to give a deep insight of how new technologies are evolving and what could be the legal paradigms and the legal impacts of these technologies upon the day-to-day lives of people, upon the working of companies. So lot of work has to be done. Observation, keen interest, tracking, and being part of the action should be some important mantras for youngsters if they really want to get involved. And I think there's so much happening that I believe the demand is far, far more than the current supply of cyber lawyers in a country like India.
Great. Sir, how did you get started? Like, tell us about your early days in your career. How did you get into this particular area, and how was the initial few years for you?
Well, I started my legal profession as a normal civil and corporate lawyer way back in 1988. Those days, there was no internet, and people only had traditionally the concepts of being part of law firms, doing independent practice, or being in-house counsels. So I started doing my own practice, and I started from the district courts. In the early 90s, I got certain clients who were specifically working in information technology, more so software. And that's the time I started getting interest in this technology of software and the digital format. Mind you, I'm a non-technology student. I'm a history graduate from St. Stephen's College. And thereafter I did law. So I had no slightest of clue of what this new technological paradigm meant. But I started getting interested more as a user and then started understanding the legal ramifications pertaining to the same. Well, 15th of August 1995, internet was introduced commercially in the country. Now, I was shortly introduced thereafter to the internet. For the first couple of months, it was madness because you hadn't seen a paradigm like this. The speeds were extremely slow, but it still was representing a big game-changing moment. After a couple of months of madness, of being absorbed and overwhelmed by the medium, I quickly, as a lawyer, started realizing that there are going to be legal, policy, and regulatory ramifications pertaining to use of cyberspace. And I thought, that's one area that one should start working on. And that's where my initial interest started. I started tracking what was happening globally. At that time, not much was happening globally. So started working with some international organizations, tracking the legal developments, the debates. Nothing was happening in the country. 1998, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers got established, which is the global nodal body which manages the Internet from a technical standpoint. I got associated with ICANN at an early days. Then I was associated with various United Nations organizations. And then, meanwhile, the General Assembly of the United Nations had passed the UNCITRAL Model Law on Electronic Commerce, asking member nations of the UN to come up with national legislations to deal with e-commerce. So work started in India happening. I started getting associated with the Department of Electronics in those days and started working on the draft IT bill, which was in 1999. Then it got referred to Parliament. There were a lot of suggestions added there. And then finally, the IT Act got passed in the year 2000. Ever since the cyber law got passed, India started having a distinctive legal framework. And slowly, work in that regard started coming in more. Now, initially, one was only focusing on cyber law. Then clients would come in and say, "Can you help me do this?" And we say, "Why not? Let's do that." So, from cyber law to cybercrime to intellectual property rights to mobiles to mobile applications to electronic commerce, electronic governance, slowly we started expanding. So, over a period of time, one started concentrating on the intersection of law and technology because one quickly realized that this is one paradigm where you have to constantly keep on studying and updating yourself with the latest trends. So it's been an exciting journey since then. Then cyber security started coming in a big way. Mobile revolution was already big. We saw the e-commerce boom. Then we saw the e-commerce bust in the country. Then we saw the building up of the mobile revolution happening in the country. We saw the early days of the social media revolution. And then we saw the Mumbai attacks. And I've been associated with the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, suggested various amendments. Actually, the Information Technology Act 2000 was a remarkable piece of legislation in the year 2000. But clearly, it was actually drafted with very limited mandate. So mind you, mobiles had come in the year 2000, but the law had chosen in its wisdom not to cover mobiles. So I testified before the Indian Parliament on three different occasions as a subject expert so as to suggest various new kinds of amendments and additions that need to be added in the IT Act. Thereafter, the IT Act got amended. Meanwhile, all litigation had begun on this way back as far as possible in the year 1996. So slowly we began to start seeing a lot of interesting things happening. And then we began seeing new paradigms emerging. Cybersecurity law came in a big manner. Uh, and then it's been a very, very exciting journey. So even today, I feel that I know nothing because technology, I like to learn from youngsters. I like to learn from technological geeks, hackers, and all stakeholders, and then try to see what are the emerging legal parameters. Just to give you a sample, these days we are working on the legalities pertaining to artificial intelligence. Now, what happens when artificial intelligence decides in its own wisdom to go ahead and kill someone because it finds that this particular person is an impediment to artificial intelligence performing its own mission or functions? Now, in a scenario like that, what kind of legal liability is going to arise? Now, these issues are already being discussed in the context of robotics that's happening, but it's the interplay between different sub-disciplines that was very, very interesting. I was invited by the Council of Europe to speak in Strasbourg at their Octopus conference 3 weeks back, where I looked at and I talked about the intersection between cybercrime and artificial intelligence. I've also done some extensive work on the darknet and the legalities pertaining to the darknet. My two books on the darknet have actually effectively argued that the time has come where law and policymakers cannot keep their eyes closed to the darknet, and you will have to come up with alternate and effective legal mechanisms to start regulating the darknet. So it's been an exciting journey. One keeps on learning, one keeps on writing, and one also extensively speaks at various conferences. And as a conference director of the only conference in the world which looks at the intersection of cyber law, cybercrime, and cybersecurity, I think I've learned immensely. The International Conference on Cyber Law, Cybercrime, and Cybersecurity, which is organized by our law firm Pavan Duggal Associates and cyberlaws.net, is now in its fifth year. And every year, you learn so much from various international stakeholders. Last time we had 150 speakers over 2 days, all thought leaders in different parts of the world, talking about 51 different subjects. This year, the conference goes on a bigger level. We have 54 different subjects. We should be having about and topics and sessions. We should have about 175 speakers. So every time you interact with different thought leaders, you try to learn from them, try to find out how things are emerging. But one thing is very clear. In this field, you cannot predict what's going to happen because even the best of soothsayers have failed in the area of cyberspace and technology. So the idea is to move along with the wave, learn with the wave, and start contributing both for evolving cybersecurity law jurisprudence and also for contributing your services as a lawyer, as a law firm for the clients.
Great. Sir, we have been you are definitely the most well-known cyber lawyer in the country right now. Everybody knows that if you think of a cyber lawyer, then the name that comes to your mind, somebody who has been around for a long time and doing great work, is Pavan Duggal. So now we have also seen that you have been writing a lot of books, writing articles, been regular on the media, and even you organize this kind of conferences. These are not always the natural thing that a lawyer tends to do. Like these are unusual things in a way that obviously great things, but these are normally a lawyer would think that this is a stepping out of the normal duties as a lawyer, and you have done a lot of that. So if you could tell us, and I'm sure that has contributed to your stature and your recognition that you have today. So how did you, and I'm quite sure that this was by design and not by accident. And so if you can give us some idea about how a lawyer should go about promoting themselves, how to, get noticed, because that's a challenge that young lawyers, even if they have a good talent, like there was a time when people believed that if you are good, then people will find you. Like if you make a good rat trap, mouse trap, the world will bid their way to your door. Don't worry. But I think we are living in a world where how you represent yourself to the world and what you are promoting also to the world, apart from your regular legal work, that counts a lot. So if you can give us some advice on that.
I think it's a very fascinating time that we are currently living in. So the traditional concepts that we have of legal practice must be remaining at the back of our mind, but we must constantly challenge ourselves to be more innovative as time passes by. So, in the context of cyber law as a discipline, which is only still evolving after more than 2.5 decades, it's going to be yet another couple of decades before it finally crystallizes as traditional evidence, traditional jurisprudence. So, you should try contributing as a young lawyer to the specific area. I think while there's a tremendous merit in the argument that you should be a generalist, having chosen a particular field and I'm working in that field, I began to realize that a person who is a specialist invariably lands up getting to know more and more about a smaller domain, whereas a generalist gets to know more and more about a large section of the various domains. Now, the choice is upon you what you want to do. You can either be a generalist or a specialist, but I think in today's ecosystem, more and more people are inclined not to really find generalists, but find specialists. So, as a youngster, if you can start identifying what is it something that is interesting you the most, what is it that really propels you into more action and passion, identify your core strength, your core interest areas, and on that basis, then you can go ahead and start working in that. Today is a world where traditional litigation is by and large substantially changing its face. More and more people are now looking at holistic ways of trying to come up with settlements or adjudication of their disputes. So, in this ecosystem, you cannot divorce yourself from technology because whether you like it or not, the clients are going to thrust technology onto you. For example, the clients today only would send you their files on the internet or on WhatsApp or on secure apps like Telegram and Signal and expect you not only to be having them, but also to be proficient in them. Also, the expectation amongst clients has suddenly skyrocketed. Everybody wants to send you an email and they want the answer for the said email in the next 5 minutes, which I think is a very, very unnatural and unfair expectation, but unfortunately, that's what's happening. So you as a legal professional will increasingly have to be connected with technology as a means for delivering of your services and performing your services. But trying to find your own niche is something that's always going to help you. Of course, it doesn't look very rosy. Right now, it looks very, very nice because everything is now well developed. But please mind you walk alone. And when you walk alone, it's a lonely walk. But if you are able to create your own path, you are not just creating the path for yourself, you're also contributing back to society as a whole. So I think the young legal professionals of today must keep in mind what is their passion, what is it that ignites their minds, identify the same and start working, and of course, constantly be ready for adopting new change. Gone are the days where you have done your law degree and that's the end of the matter, and for the remaining part of your life, you will continue to do one kind of litigation. I think those days are slowly evaporating. You cannot even predict the kind of cases, the kind of legal work that you will be doing in the next 5 to 10 years. So if this is the rapid speed of change that's going around us, I think it becomes very important for us to adapt ourselves to change. Already, a lot of law firms across the world have suddenly found that they have become fertile victims of cyber criminals who've gone ahead and breached their cybersecurity to cause detriment not just to the present and future business prospects of the law firm, but also have intrinsically prejudicially impacted their clients. So whether it's the Panama leak papers, whether it's any other case, whether it's a ransomware attacks that took place last year, where one of the most prominent law firms in the world had to shut down its entire offices because their entire systems were impacted by the ransomware. So I think as legal professionals, you will increasingly have to do two things. Number one, make technology as an integral component of your practice. Number two, start using technology for the purposes of exploring new innovative ways of offering services to your clients. Now, artificial intelligence is coming in a big way, and that is actually posing a big threat to paralegals and the youngsters. Why? Because with these very secure, robust artificial intelligence softwares concerning the legal profession, which have been developed and are in the process of developing, they are likely to make a large chunk of paralegals redundant. Further, they're likely to challenge some of the way how analytical thought process is going to be done by lawyers, because in a recent survey they found out that an artificial intelligence program was far more accurate in trying to predict the potential legal strategies to a legal dispute than even human lawyers who are working on a similar kind of a matter in a different ecosystem. So the life is completely different. We have to constantly keep on adapting ourselves to change, and the sky is the limit. Do not get yourself stuck to particular stereotypes. Whatever area interests you, whether it's civil, criminal, property, income tax, competition, you name it, whatever you want, identify that area and go in that area, and be flexible enough to not only change with the demands of the time, but also to change your practices, keeping in mind the specific requests that you're going to get from clients from time to time. And of course, the legal profession is changing very, very rapidly. It was good to say 10 years back that the legal profession is one profession that has changed the least in the last 200 years. No longer is a set dictum valid. The way how quickly legal profession is changing is increasingly telling us that as young lawyers, we must start being a part of that set change, the set process, and start adapting ourselves. But always go by the call of your heart. Of course, as a lawyer, sometimes you have no control of the kind of work that you get. What work your clients give you determine the work that you currently do. But sometimes it also often helps if you consciously make a decision to walk a path that, okay, I may want to give up my normal work and concentrate on this particular area because that's interesting me more. In the short run, it may seem to be a dicey, risky proposition, but I think in the long run, it is always going to actually pay very handsome dividends to you. But at the end of the day, it's each person to his own and what choices he has to make.
Right, sir. If you can tell us a bit more about, how how today lawyers are promoting themselves, or what you would consider as a best practice to gather some momentum for a practice which is just taking off, or somebody who has built a fledgling practice, how can they go about doing, like you, I'm sure you have been implementing some of the best practices, so if you can give us some advice in that.
I think we must think out of the box to begin with. We should concentrate on the areas of practice that we would want to do that. Initially, we can even be generalists. We can be a general law firm and try to get as much kinds and varieties of work. It'll be nice if you can start finding your own sweet corner somewhere. And for that, it'll be imperative that you must be able to do extensive research. If you can write, that's wonderful, because through writings, through articles, people are able to get not just your opinion, but also are able to actually judge not just your writing skills, but your acumen as a lawyer. So writing distinctly helps. Speaking at conferences is also one good way where you can establish your thought leadership. But at the end of the day, clients are ruthless. They were only going to measure you on the basis of the efficiency that you perform in your capacity as a lawyer. So no amount of speaking or no amount of writing can actually supplement your lawyering skills. So please concentrate on that more. Clients today are very, very demanding. They are wanting almost instantaneous response. So constant connection with the client in terms of looking at his expectation and trying to match up with those should be an important challenge for a large number of law firms. But in today's ecosystem, at a time when there are so many restrictions on lawyers that you cannot solicit, you cannot advertise, I think by showing your academic brilliance, by showing your expertise in one area, you can also carve thought leadership in your specific area and continue to do all the normal skills that you would otherwise be doing and activities that you would otherwise be doing as a lawyer. There are no golden principles yet. You see, when I began, I had no clue of where this particular path is going to take us. But of course, I was intrinsically convinced about one thing, which is that internet, given its game-changing nature, is going to become more and more a central part of our day-to-day lives. And if that's going to be the position, then the appropriate connected legal ramifications are invariably going to attract more and more attention and will increasingly apply to various stakeholders, not just nationally, but internationally. But if you're able to be honest, if you're able to be dedicated, if you do your work with passion, clients today still recognize the same. Initially, it might require some more additional effort, but if you're able to satisfy a client by giving in your best, then I can tell you the client invariably is going to come back to you, because at the end of the day, the client knows you. He's got his work done from you, and he's got confidence that once he comes back again, you're also likely to deliver similar kinds of levels of service. So I think it's just commitment, conscious patience, and constantly keep on doing your job to the best of your capabilities. That should be your winning mantras for any lawyer or any law firm as you go forward.
Great. I think that's very useful advice. If you can tell us a bit about, what is the like who are the best employers today for cyber lawyers and technology lawyers? What are the most sought after jobs and good places to work at, including chambers of lawyers and companies in other places? If you could give us some advice on.
Well, I think if you want to work in cyber law, you can either work for some dedicated law firms who are working on cyber law, but you'll have to make your choices carefully. Today, the area has come or the age has come where everybody says that he's a cyber law expert. So you'll have to make a distinction where you want to go. But more than that, I think it'll be a good idea if you can try exploring in-house counselship. Because if you're going to work in a technology company, the kind of exposure that's you're going to be facing and getting is going to be massive, which you will not get in a law firm. For example, if you get as an in-house counsel in a startup, I think that will be the best way going forward, because a startup cannot really afford a lot of high legal fees, but they want people who are able to perform in as part of their in-house counsel, and they will thereafter give you so much of work and a wide thrust of activities that your experience is going to phenomenally be increasing. In addition, you can also work for big companies because today what's happening is cyber law has a large number of compliance requirements. Now, companies initially would only want to recruit lawyers, but they then started realizing, okay, maybe if we recruit cyber lawyers in addition to lawyers, that would be better. But very quickly they started realizing, how about if you were able to get a combination of a lawyer who also knows cyber law? That way, they are going to do multi-skilling and they are going to save money. So if you can be a part of any company and help them get their cyber law compliances in place, that is also a great way to move forward. I think if you're part of a small company and you are just one or two persons in the legal department, that is the best way to learn because you get exposed to a vast variety of works, the different ramifications that an entity has to keep in mind, and you can not only help in molding compliances, but also can give effective advice on how the company can come up with its prospective strategy to be ensuring compliance with the applicable cyber law parameters. In addition, if you want, you can also start your own cyber law practice, but initially, I must say, it does take some time. If you're thinking overnight, you're going to press the button and it's going to you're going to be the most successful person. It does happen with some, but for a majority of people, it does not happen. It takes a lot of time, effort, hard work, and industriousness to really go forward. But initially, I think the kind of exposure that an in-house counselship would give you, that a startup would give you, is something that even a law firm will not give you. And my first advice to all the young lawyers will be, it will be a good idea if you can do a stint of about 1 year or 2 years in a startup. That's going to completely change your perspective. It's going to make your approaches far more rich, far more diverse, and will be immensely valuable, not just for your existing employers, but for your subsequent employments as also for your subsequent legal practice as well.
I think that's a very apt advice. How can you say that when there is a case in the court as a cyber lawyer, is it viable today in India, like to do just cyber law related matters and not to do other matters? And if it is viable, then do you need different kind of skills set apart from like if someone is a general litigator, if you're litigating only around cyber law, then technology law, do you are there some different skill sets that you need on top of what you need to be a normal general lawyer?
Apart from being a general lawyer, if you want to be a dedicated cyber lawyer, it's imperative that your technical appreciation skills must be adequate and up to date. Now, gone are the days where you could just talk about general technology stuff. Today, clients come to you with specific applications, with specific platforms, and they expect you as a cyber lawyer to be on the same page almost instantaneously. So, if you can have a technical background, that is going to immensely help. You can either do a couple of these online courses in some various new technologies so that you can intrinsically understand how the technology is functioning. You can pick and choose which area you want to concentrate on. But if you're able to do those technical skill sets and beef them with your existing legal skill sets, that's going to distinguish you from other people in the profession because the client today does not have patience. He comes to you, he says you are a cyber lawyer, then I don't need to tell you cyber technology. I presume you will understand cyber technology and you will straight away come to the point of my pain areas that I'm currently facing and help me solve the problems. So therefore, technological acumenship becomes of tremendous significance. And you can do a lot of these online courses which are currently available. You can read a lot of content that's available online just to understand the technological basis of these newly emerging technologies. For example, today, a lot of people are using mobiles in the country. So if a client is coming to you on a mobile application related issue or an over the top application related issue, he's not expecting you to that he will sensitize you as to what is an over the top application or what are the salient parameters of a mobile application. He expects you to definitely know about them, be proficient, and straight away come to the legal issue that he's currently facing. So that's the number one stuff that I think you should definitely be doing in. Work is beginning to grow. Of course, there is some work, a lot of work up there, but still the kind of litigation that India has yet to see in cyber matters has not fully evolved. As in the next coming few years, as more and more technology adoption is coming in, more and more cyber legal disputes are coming in, I expect more and more work to flood the market. And once that work comes in, then dedicatedly large number of people can say that I can only do cyber law as a dedicated legal practice and work on. But as of now, I will suggest that whatever work comes to you, please don't say no to your work. Get all your cyber legal work. But if some client comes to you and say, okay, can you also do me this? Please don't say a no to your client to say that you will not do this because, for example, for all you know, he will tomorrow say, well, how about going to two separate lawyers? Let me go to a lawyer who's able to do both these things for me together. So there is a lot of work coming in. Already a lot of work is existing, but it'll still take a couple of years for cyber law as a full-time profession to be completely sustainable by lawyers and law firms because the volume of work has yet to reach to the level that we have been anticipating.
Right. I think litigation work may be a little less, but on there are TMT teams which are handling a lot of technology contracting and technology transactions, and every transaction these days have a technology angle. So I think law. If you're working in a law firm or you want to work in a company, technology companies
Hi, I missed you. Hello?
yeah, I can clearly hear you. Can you hear me?
No, I lost you in between. Can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, yes. I was just saying that in case of somebody wants to work in a law firm or wants to work with a in-house team or legal team, there are enough opportunities. There are technology companies are like primary employment drivers. Like there are too many. Like it's one of the sectors which is growing rapidly, and every sector has requirements of technology. So if somebody wants to work in in-house teams or in law firms, there are exclusive teams for just that. Like there are TMT teams. But as far as litigation, perhaps it is not so well developed. Maybe it will take a few more years. It's almost towards the end of our session, 8:53 already, and we have got a lot of questions for you. So people who have asked questions, those
Sure, let's
questions
take
now.
these questions.
Okay. So we have Kapur HS asking, how can one attain a holistic academic knowledge with respect to cyber laws jurisprudence prevalent across the world? I find no LLM especially catering to cyber laws. This is a question from HS Kapur.
I think you are bang on target. The kind of LLM that you're currently looking in is not existing, at least in the country. There are some LLM courses which are there in England, but there also the focus of the said LLM is different. If you want to have a holistic understanding of all cyber laws in different parts of the world, then I think we'll have to wait for some other institution to offer us that LLM. But typically, most of the LLMs that are in different parts of the country and across the world are only focusing on one or two components or thrust areas rather than the ecosystem as a whole. But independent of that, there's nothing stopping you from going and reading about these various cyber laws. Information about that is available. We have a website called www.cyberlaws.net, which we provide details about various cyber laws in different parts of the world. In addition, I'm also the chairperson of the International Commission on Cyber Security Law. We are collating all the legal frameworks in different parts of the world which impact cybersecurity, and that's available on the website of the International Commission on Cyber Security Law, being www.cyberlawcybersecurity.com. So a lot of content is out there. You can read that, but you are bang on target. What you're currently looking at as an LLM, that kind of an LLM with that kind of curriculum is currently not visible on the horizon.
So we have a question from Shivank Arora. He's asking, uh, person with no background in IT, what like if a person who has no background in IT, what technical courses should a lawyer do to understand the technical side of various disciplines related to cyber?
Okay, I think that's a fantastic question. Technology is again moving at a very rapid pace. So you'll have to start identifying which area in technology you would want to do that. If you're thinking of a magical course that's going to give you a primer for everything technology, there are some of these courses which are available online. But I'll actually advise you to concentrate on a particular technology. You want to look at mobiles, then you focus there on mobiles and start understanding about mobile applications. If you want to only look at over the top applications, you can look at that. You are looking at encryption related technologies, then you have certain specific courses which can tell you how various encryption technologies are developing. Similarly, if you're only wanting to look at authentication, then there are certain specific courses that can be developed. Now, cybersecurity is itself a big paradigm. So the technical aspects of cybersecurity and how they have to be managed are being taught in various online courses. But what I do find is that different courses are like different chunks. If you're finding and wanting to have one place where you find everything, then that kind of a combination is relatively rare. So in that scenario, it will be best if you identify which particular technology you want to look at. You can look at that, and there are a lot of these free courses also available online, and you can find them to be of tremendous value. For example, I have done this course on cyber security law that I created in August 2017 on Udemy, and I kept it as a free course. And in less than about almost about 11 months, we have close to about 7,500 students from 152 countries who've done that course. So just because the course is free does not necessarily mean that it's not worth doing. There are a lot of free courses which are being available by some of the top universities. You can consider doing some of that courses. You want to do a paid technology course, you can do that as well. The choice is all yours.
We have one more question from Satyam Mishra. He's asking, is our law stringent enough to control the increasing high-tech cyber crimes which the society is facing today? In a situation when the government is in a hurry to make the country and people digital. So, like he's asking about how like the state of the law in the country, is it like good enough to deal with this?
I think as a country, we do not have adequate enough laws to deal effectively with high tech crime or cybercrime per se, primarily because India does not have a dedicated law on cybercrime. The Information Technology Act 2000 did insert a chapter, Chapter Roman 11, in the year 2000, which defined certain cybercrimes. Those days, it was still better because a majority of cybercrimes were non bailable. But the amendments in 2008 effectively ensured that a majority of cybercrimes have been made as bailable. So
Sir, we have lost you. We cannot hear you.
we found that various newly emerging cybercrimes have started coming up on the horizon, but the legal frameworks are not adequate. And now, with Aadhaar coming in and this intersection of Aadhaar and cyber together, with so many cyber security breaches coming in, I find that the current legal dispensation is not adequate. The law needs to be amended. The last time we amended it, it was in the year 2008. Today, at 2018, it's high time that the law needs to be specifically amended so as to deal with newly emerging cyber crimes as we go forward.
So, one part is of course the law, but even the law that is there today, we have very little enforcement mechanism in place to even enforce that. So, what do you think? Like, usually, if you go to the police and say that, this is a cyber crime I faced, most of the time say that, see, okay, fine, register your complaint and go, and there's not much we can probably do. So, I mean, that's the situation with most of the even like registering a complaint very often is like useless because there is an offense under the law. But if you file it, like what happens after that? Because the police may not, the cyber police Most of the places in the country do not have any cyber police, and where they have in a city big enough where they have cyber police, they are maybe under, there are not enough people to deal with it. So, what's your opinion on this? Do you see anything changing, or what's the way forward?
Well, the question that you actually asked is indeed most pertinent, primarily because cyber criminals are roughly about 10 steps ahead of law enforcement agencies. And currently, trying to get a cybercrime registered in the country is a tall order. You go to the local thana, the local police, and ask him to register. The chances are 99% they will not register the case. A lot of times people fear the kind of harassment that they are going to face in the hands of the law enforcement, and that's the reason they would invariably just give up or not report. No wonder underreporting of cybercrimes has become the de facto norm in a country like India. So there's a need for far more capacity building. Yes, in the law enforcement agencies, you got some excellent officers. But we do find that when I look at the force as a whole, one does find that we really need to constantly keep on enhancing the capacity of the forces of the law enforcement agencies and also of the judiciary as well. Because with more and more Indians now coming onto the digital bandwagon, and mind you, we don't yet have cyber education as a part of school curriculum. So the kind of maturity hiccups that take place in the maturity journey of a digital inhabitant to a digital user, to a mature digital user, surely throws up large number of new challenges. So the time has come that India already has a pretty disastrous cybercrime conviction rate. I was the counsel for India's first cybercrime conviction as the counsel for the complainant way back in 2003. And we thought that that's going to start and herald a new era, and we'll have more and more cybercrime convictions. But we were mistaken. Most of the time, we were not able to get enough cybercrime convictions, and the 2008 amendments to the Information Technology Act virtually made it impossible to get convictions because it made, barring three cybercrimes, almost all cybercrimes as bailable offenses. Now, once people would come out on bail, the first thing that they will do is go ahead and delete the relevant incriminating electronic evidence before even consulting a lawyer. And then they will say, well, now that I've deleted evidence, let me now take legal advice. So consequently, getting cybercrime convictions in the country became a tall order. And since then, in the last 1 decade, we have seen a famine of cybercrime convictions in the country. So it's high time that we need to reverse the trend. We need to put in far more capacity building amongst the law enforcement agencies to make them more user-friendly, citizen-friendly in their approach. You should not be punished because you have gone ahead to report a cybercrime. On the contrary, there should be a very user-friendly approach by the police to give comfort factor that, look, you already are a victim of cybercrime, don't worry, we will assist you to every extent possible. And I think India needs to revisit its very, very soft stand on intermediary liability. We find that a number of these service providers are physically located outside the territorial boundaries of India. They want to actually get benefit of the Indian market. They want to use the Indian numbers, generate business here, generate money here, monetize our data, but still do not want to follow Indian law and still do not want to give information to law enforcement agencies. And I think for that, India should not only revisit its legal frameworks on intermediary liability, but also effectively enforce the existing provisions of law. If you are going to enforce them, and the provisions of the IT Act are crystal clear. The IT Act and Section 1 and Section 75 says that this act applies to any person of any nationality anywhere in the world, so long as the act or the conduct constituting the offense or contravention involves a computer system, or computer network physically located in India. So the provisions are there. They need to be effectively enforced, and more and more people need to be encouraged. Today, people feel that reporting a cybercrime could be an invitation to harassment. That should give way to a more equitable scenario where they can be in a position to report anonymously the cyber crimes that has happened with them, The law should studiously protect their identity, and their names should not be actually flashed on the media or the print media. And more significantly, they should not be put under any harassment. I think once we start creating that fertile ecosystem, people's mindset will, over a period of time, change. And of course, we now need to revisit our laws pertaining to electronic evidence. The way the legal frameworks have now been interpreted in the law, it's very, very clear that trying to prove incriminating electronic evidence in a court of law by the law enforcement agencies has become such a tall order. And it's high time that we need to actually simplify the rules pertaining to electronic evidence. More so in a country like India, where we have Section 65B of the Evidence Act, this particular provision has been drafted keeping in mind the PC era. So mobile evidence is not capable of being completely covered within the parameters of 65B of the Indian Evidence Act. So a lot of work needs to be done in trying to make our electronic evidence legal frameworks more amenable to mobile-based evidence, because that's where a majority of Indians are generating, using, and transmitting data, and to overall contribute in the direction of getting more cybercrime convictions. If there are more cybercrime convictions, that is going to give a deterrence effect, which is currently missing. A majority of cybercrimes being bailable under the IT Act means that people virtually do not care about the law. So we need to strengthen the legal frameworks. We need to come up with stringent punishments, and ultimately, over a period of time, not just work towards having adequate cybercrime convictions, but also work in the direction of inculcating cybersecurity as a way of life in the Indian society. Most of Indians are not officially or legally educated in cyber hygiene skill sets, and I think those need to be strongly encouraged. I've been advocating that cyber law education and cyber security education needs to be part of the school curriculum from the first standard onwards, not wait after school, like what the UGC is currently saying, that you incorporate cybersecurity in your graduation and post-graduation courses. No. At the time when we have started giving our devices to children at the ages of 3 to 4, it's imperative that we start making cyber law education as a part of school curriculum from the word go. So a lot of work needs to be done. Every stakeholder has to contribute. And I think once we start doing that, we are definite to see a positive, cogent, constructive change in this direction.
Sir, I want to share one of the small projects we started. It's called reportcybercrime.in. I will share the link with you later. So what we are trying to do is that we have created volunteers in around 400 districts in India, like mostly law students, and we are asking people to submit whatever problems they have faced the police station and submit, but they can tell us online. They can fill up a form, and we communicate all this data to the local cyber cell and the police stations, and in an accumulated way, like in a whole district, we give all the data to the police and say that these are the complaints that people by going to the police station, but these are still issues that people have faced. So this is something that we are trying to do so that there is more data about what kind of cyber crime is being committed across India. So I'll share the link with you. Maybe you will find it interesting. There is one more question.
Congratulations.
Yes, sir.
I think congratulations. I didn't know about your initiative, but this is remarkable. The more we contribute in this ecosystem by initiatives like what you have currently floated, the better it's going to be, and it's going to help us all create a more secure cyberspace.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So there's a long miles to go. It's still in its initial phase. There's one more question. We have overshot our time quite a bit while listening to you, and there's one more question. I think it is important to address. So this question is by Chandra Mohan. He's asking that I'm in fourth year of BA and interested in cyber law. I'm very much worried what to do regarding how to start, and after fifth year, what do I do? Please suggest. And he has also asked a supplementary question. If possible, then please suggest books on cyber law or IT Acts commentary, or if that is what I need to start with. So basically, a law student, if they want to, like fourth year, fifth year law students, if they're interested, then how do they get started?
Well, I think now that you're in your fourth year and you're going to your fifth year, this is the time to start getting focused. If you really want to look at cyber law, start taking your course on cyber law in your course curriculum more seriously. As far as books are concerned, there are a number of books. My book, Cyber Law 3.0, which is done by LexisNexis, is the most comprehensive. Gives you an extensive commentary and up-to-date status of the latest case law in cyber law jurisprudence in India, and also does some comparative analysis with some existing national legal positions. That should be a good start. A lot of articles are available online. It'll also be good if you can try to do some internship under some cyber lawyer, and we often take interns. And if you want, you can write to our law firm, Pavan Duggal Associates, at info@pavandugalassociates.com, and we have an internship program where we look at research-based internship. Because once you want to come in cyber law, your research skills have to be pretty solid because things are developing. Now, books are not available off the shelf for the cutting edge problems that clients are going to come up to you. So you will have to get some strong skill sets involved for research. We do some of that. Sometimes we also have the internships for these conferences that we do, like the International Conference on Cyber Law, Cybercrime, and Cybersecurity has an internship program where interns come in and work dedicatedly on being a part of the entire process of how to actually go ahead and conduct an international conference of that magnitude. So you tend to learn quite a lot when you do these internships. More significantly, when you come to these conferences that we organize, you meet the creme de la creme. So when you interact with some of the top personalities in this space at a global level, merely by talking to them, you'll end up learning quite a lot. And you get to be sensitized of some of the important things. So I'll encourage you to do some good internships, do some good reading. Also, be abreast of what's happening internationally. Like this year has been a remarkable year. You've seen some massive increases in cyber law jurisprudence thanks to the GDPR, or the General Data Protection Regulation, coming into effect in the European Union in May 2018, and now also the NIS, or the Network Information System legal framework, coming in the European Union also in May of this year. So a lot of activities are happening globally. Keep a tab on some of the important developments. Look at some of the important cases that are currently being argued and are currently being in the process of deciding. For example, the latest case on Aadhaar and its issue as to whether it is violating your right to privacy can also give you a deep insight on how to deal with technology-related issues and aspects. So, no magical formula. Just keep your eyes and ears open. If you are interested in the space, do more internships in cyber law, because then it's going to give you more, not just research exposure, but also will help you to understand on a practical level how do these emerging cyber law challenges have to be appropriately addressed as a lawyer, what is the expectation of the client, how to deal with the client, and how to ultimately contribute not just in the your client's effective legal interest, but also to be really following a part of the evolving cyber law jurisprudence at the national and international level.
Wonderful. I think that's very really, great advice and very useful for all the people who are looking at this area as a they want to pursue a career in cyber law or even thinking of cyber law as a potential area of practice. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and very deep insights and all the information you've shared today. We hope to have you back another time and share more about and some other area of law. Maybe like one of the things, one of your cases, etc. You can tell us more another day. Sure, everybody will love it. We have got very fantastic feedback on comments. Many of the viewers have really appreciated the all like your like the whatever you have shared today. So thank you so much, everybody who watched today till so late. Thank you very much for joining us and watching an hour with LawSikho. I'm signing off. This is Ramanuj Mukherjee, and we hope to have you back tomorrow again, 8 to 9.
Ramanuj, can I just pause here and thank you, your team, and also your entire viewers for being part of this wonderful initiative that you have taken. I am delighted to be part of this initiative. I've been following your work and the work that you've been doing in various initiatives. My congratulations to you. And I'd like to sign off also by saying that if any person who's seeing your particular podcast or broadcast, and if they want to really work in cyber law, you're more than welcome to actually go ahead and apply to our law firm, because we are looking up at picking up some bright young minds, not just for research based in works, but also for certain projects that we are currently doing. So we'll be happy to assist anyone who is particular in this space. And I'll be personally very happy to be associated in your initiatives, including your report cybercrime.in initiative, which I think is also a good but an important contribution in this ecosystem. Thank you for inviting. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, sir, and good night, everyone. Hope to see you tomorrow again. Good night.
Good night.